Hello everyone, it's Sabrina here from Traveling Single Mom, and today's Throwback Thursday. So I was talking to my friend Kayla about what video I should do today, and she said that many of my videos are for people who are already traveling, like her and I. It's easy for us to talk about doing our laundry in a laundry bag or paying $200 for an apartment, but many people from the United States who haven't done budget traveling like we have might be like, that's impossible, or I don't know how she gets to that point, or who would do their laundry in a bag. I think about my best friend Nicole all the time when I think about the different things that I do throughout the day, such as filtering our water with a Sawyer water filter, Sawyer squeeze water filter, or doing our laundry in a bag. I think she would be out of her mind if she had to do these things, or the low water pressure that's in our shower, just different things like that that many people would not allow themselves to endure, but we happily do it and continue traveling. So let's get started with how exactly I got to this point and how you can get to this point too. So it originally started almost 6 years ago when my daughter was born. I instantly knew that I wanted a different life for her. So I had a great standard American childhood. My parents owned a home. I went to the same school year after year. It was a very stable childhood. And for some reason in my head, I didn't want that lifestyle for my daughter, which might seem crazy to some people, but I wanted her to experience so much more than I got to experience. And that started with thinking about how I would do that for her. My town was about half white, half Mexican community, so there was not much influence or cultural education on other countries, cultures, atmospheres, and that caused me to only be exposed to the negative aspects of different cultures, and those will constantly be in my head, although I will never act on them. But I don't want those to be in my daughter's head. I don't want her to ever have to go off stereotypes and think, oh, just because someone's Asian, they're smart. Just because someone's this, they have to be like this. I don't want her to have to think that way. And by exposing her to tons of different cultures, languages, environments, she will think much less like that than I ever will be able to get to. So I wanted her to have that type of environment, and my initial thought was for her to live, or for us to live, in a different country every year. That was before I educated myself more on this type of lifestyle and realized that there's no way that you could make a plan like that and say, okay, on this date we're going to move to this country, and then in this year we're going to move to this country. It doesn't work like that, especially if you want to do this lifestyle the, I guess, right way, I would say, even though there's no right way. But you will find that when you go to your first country, that people will lead you, and not necessarily you will follow people, but you will learn from other people's experiences. So I constantly talk to people that have never been to China, and I expose them to the world of China. And then some people might be like, oh, because of that, I never want to go there. Or some people might be like, oh, because of that, I want to experience that as well, you know? So you will constantly get stories from other travelers. And that is the beauty of this lifestyle. It's so amazing for us to go to China and for us to meet people from Zimbabwe, Uganda, South Africa, Canada, everywhere around the world. So that was my first thought, and then I started researching it more. We moved from state to state in the United States, me working and preparing for this lifestyle. So when my daughter was 3 or 4 years old, we moved to Florida after I got a job out there, a job offer for an on-base contractor. And that was an amazing opportunity for me. It was great pay. And so we moved there within 10 days of hearing about this job. So my daughter started going to school. And this year of us living in Florida was the most intense year of my life. In preparation for moving abroad, I knew in the distant future that I wanted to move abroad, but I didn't necessarily know where or when. I didn't have a solid plan, and I was thinking about working at this job for at least 2 years to stack my savings to a certain point. So then something crazy happened in my life that was very, unexpected. I got fired from my contracting job. So at this time, I was working 40 hours at the contracting job. I was working over 40 hours for VIP Kid at this point. I was working on my TEFL certificate for International TEFL Academy, and I was working on my second or third master's degree at this point. So I was working 2 full-time jobs and a degree and a certification, while Safari was working on gymnastics 5 to 6 days a week. So my life was crazy, and I was constantly working or studying or something of that nature. I barely slept. I ended up going to a counselor once a week just because I was so stressed, and I couldn't understand why I wasn't able to handle it all. And so I would constantly cry at the counselor every week. But once I got fired, that was something God did for me that I couldn't do for myself. And I was always thinking, oh, if I just work a couple more months to get our savings up a little bit more. And I knew that I couldn't make that final decision to stop working there in order to fulfill our dreams in the abroad lifestyle. So God did it for me, and that was the best thing that could ever happen. And so the next day we went swimming at our apartments, and I realized that I didn't even know my child. She was something on my checklist of things to do to make sure she got from school to gymnastics to home, and it was not a good situation. So once I got fired, it was an incredible relief. And so we decided to move back to California to pursue moving to China much more in the near future. And I honestly can't articulate how I decided China. I guess it had something to do with teaching for VIP Kid, and honestly, I just thought, go big or go home. I mean, we're going to go into the abroad lifestyle. I wanted to move to Mexico, but at the time I was thinking about teaching English in the country that we lived in. So the most profitable would have been China as well. So those are a couple different factors that came into play. So I got in contact with a couple of different recruiters, and I ended up deciding that we were going to go to China on tourist visas and then look for a job while in China before we decided where I was going to work and she was going to go to school. So we ended up getting a job about 3 weeks after we were in China, and then came back to the United States for our work visas. So we did that whole process. And then in regards to preparing for packing, so when we went back to California, I was working for VIP Kid very full time so that I could save up our money as much as possible, and then I was watching YouTube videos almost full time to get ready for packing and what we should and shouldn't bring. And this is something very important that people preparing to live abroad should take into consideration, that you do not need to spend thousands of dollars to prepare to travel abroad. Your biggest expenses should be, of course, your plane ticket, your accommodation when you get there, and any visas that you have to get before you leave from the United States or wherever you're from. And I watched all these YouTube videos, and some of them I was like, I don't need that, because these YouTube videos, a lot of them are affiliate links, so they are going to get paid if you click on the link and buy whatever it is. So they're going to convince you that you need this $100 passport holder and this $400 backpack in order to travel, but you don't. Like, I went to a Dollar and More store where there was a rolling backpack for $10. Yes, it's not the best quality, but my personal opinion is I don't want the best quality of most things, because if you do not carry something with you full time in your backpack so that you can visibly see it, then you're leaving it for someone else to steal and for it not to be yours anymore. And that's how I think about everything that I own. So I have our important documents folder in my backpack, our passports, our global entry cards, our ID cards for California. Everything that is important to us is in my backpack constantly. So if you go out and buy a $100 shirt that's going to last you forever, it's not going to last you forever if someone comes into your Airbnb and takes it. So I don't buy the highest quality of things. And I still got sucked into a lot of these things on YouTube that you have to buy and it's the best quality and you should get this before we left for China. So I ended up spending about $1,000 to $2,000 US on preparing for this venture that we went on. So I got a sleeping bag, a tent, a air mattress, those are just some of the ridiculous things that I got. I prepared for the world to end, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I wanted everything in our backpack that we were ever going to need ever. And so then I thought that I was so cool for fitting it all in my backpack, but the thing was, the backpack was so heavy that I didn't want to carry it as a backpack anywhere. I didn't want to carry it, period. So once we got to China, I almost got rid of about half of what was in the backpack, and then I stored it at a friend's house. And when we went back to change our visas to work visas, I left a lot of it back at my mom's house. So that was a big lesson that I learned that cost me a lot of money that I want you guys to learn from me. Another lesson that I learned was that you should not, unless you are for sure signing a contract and plan on living in a certain location for over a year period of time, and you have a work visa and that is the lifestyle that you choose to have as a traveler, then I would not sign a lease for an apartment. I would do Airbnb. I would do short-term leases, a month to 3 months. But I made the mistake of signing a year lease, and in China you have to pay for the entire year lease when you sign it. So I paid over $6,500 US for a year of a really nice, expensive apartment in Qingdao, and then my visa got denied in June, and our apartment we still have up until April. So I paid all that money and I can't get it back, and there's nothing I can really do about it. So please learn from that mistake that I made, that if you are going to do more not short term, but month to 6 month travel, then don't sign a lease for a longer term apartment, or just do Airbnb where you can just pay month to month and you don't have to put down a deposit, which is what I love about Airbnb. So that is another mistake that I made in these travels that I want you guys to learn from. So let's see, I have a list here. So make sure to ask questions from people like me who have experience traveling to different places. I ask questions constantly. I go on YouTube, Facebook groups. I go on Instagram, and I talk to people who live in the different countries that I want to go to next. I talk to people in the country that I'm currently in and see who's close to me, who could meet up with me for just exchanging stories, telling what your experience is. And honestly, I thought that I was horrible at networking my entire first 28 years of life when I was in the United States. I really thought that I was just not a people person. And then I realized that I just was tired of hearing the same story in the United States over and over again. People who, and don't get me wrong, not everybody is unhappy in the United States. Absolutely not. My best friend, she would never, ever do my lifestyle. She told me yesterday she wouldn't last a day in this lifestyle. But the thing is that I just heard the same story every day about people who are struggling, people who are on food stamps and welfare, and just trying to literally make enough money to feed their family. And that just makes me sad, and I don't want to hear sad stories like that, although they happen all over the world. But once I went abroad, I realized that people's stories are interesting because of the fact that if you are in a country that is not your own, it took you effort to get here. You didn't just one day wake up and be like, I'm going to walk to Mexico. No, it took you effort. You had to plan. You had to get your family on board. You had to get the financial means. You have to get the visa in many countries. It took effort. So you have to be living a part of your dream in order to be in this country. And that's interesting to me, that somebody's pursuing their dream in a world currently that most people are just so worried about the next paycheck, so worried about making sure their family's fed. For people to be living a part of their dream is rare in a lot of countries, in a lot of situations. It's rare. So I love to hear when people are doing something they're passionate about, doing something that involves their dream in life. So that is why now I feel like I am so much better at networking, because I am surrounding myself with people who are happy, with people who are enjoying life, people who are working less and living more. And it it energizes me to want to do the same and to want to keep going. So those are the different sources that I use to get in contact with people like that. It's Facebook and Instagram are the two main sources that I use. So in regards to hotels, I use booking.com and Hotel Tonight. Those are the ones that I use for more short-term hotels. Hotel Tonight is one of my favorites. We go to Hotel Mission Gran in Cuernavaca. We've been there twice now, and we did a video on it actually, and it's amazing. And we usually get it for around $42 a night, which is crazy because it's a super nice hotel. And then for long-term stays, we use Airbnb, and that's where we're currently at right now. So in regards to flights, I use Google Flights, and then sometimes I will use Skyscanner for guidance. So if I'm not sure where I want to go next, I'll use Skyscanner to the everywhere function, so I can see where's the cheapest to go from where I am to wherever, and then I will use Google Flights to see what the cheapest possible date would be. So I'm using Google Flights for our upcoming trips, and I'm finding amazing deals for going to different places such as Dominican Republic, South Africa, and a couple different places. So yes, use those different resources, as well as asking people on Facebook groups. I constantly think of what can I search in regards to groups. I search low waist groups, I search travel groups, I search single mom travel groups, unschooling groups. All of those different groups are going to help you tremendously. I just literally am on Facebook way too much lately, just reading different people's questions and what people answer, and I believe that educates me so much on what our next possibilities could be. So that is kind of our story and how we got to this point in regards to only paying $200 for rent, or doing our laundry out of a bag, or filtering all the water that we drink. These might seem like very primal things to you, but they're fun to me, and I think that many people look at it in a different way, thinking, oh, well, I work and I'm a single parent and I have this and this going on. I don't have time to do my laundry in a bag and filter my own water. But the thing is that when you live this lifestyle, it's not as hectic as you're used to. And trust me, that's very hard for me too. I'm a list person. I gotta do this, I gotta do this. Okay, that's checked off. And I'm teaching myself slowly that I just need to calm down and enjoy life, and enjoy being with my daughter more, and enjoy this blessing that God has given me to be able to be in an environment like this. It's absolutely amazing. So if you guys could see what I could see, here you go. This is right outside my balcony. I just came down the steps to video out here today. So I hope you guys learned a lot from this video, and a lot from our throwback story today on exactly my thought process of how we got to this point, currently living here in Cuernavaca, Mexico. So if you have any questions about this story and how I got here and what steps you should take to get here, please let me know in the comments or private message us. It was great talking to you guys, and I'll see you in our next video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks. Bye.